So when I went to bed last night, things were looking good because the polls showed that Remain was ahead. Farage was publishing a statement saying that he was kind of conceding defeat. I wasn't entirely happy because we all know what polls are like, but it looked like things were going the right way. This morning, radio went off at 5:30 in the morning. Don't ask me why. And I just caught snippets of the news where people were talking about it without so many words because I was half asleep. But I kind of thought, well, that doesn't sound like the sort of thing people would be saying if we'd stayed in. So with growing dread, I woke myself up properly. And what's happened? We voted to leave the EU. Absolutely unbelievable. I don't know what to say, really. I think it's a victory for the politics of lies. Still, people are quoting that £350 million a week figure, which is a lie. It's interesting that Farage was on the news this morning and denying that £350 million would be spent on the NHS. In fact, distancing himself from it and saying, "Oh, I never agreed with that, and it's nothing to do with me." And we've had Daniel Hannan on saying that actually leaving the EU won't reduce immigration. So all the things that they were promising to get people on side are just falling apart, even on day one. Sterling took its biggest dip for a long time, maybe forever, I don't know, but certainly for 30 years. Stock market's crashed, so anyone with a pension is considerably poorer today. All of these things which were branded as Project Fear by the Vote Leave people are coming true. Interesting, isn't it? What else has happened? Farage. Cameron has stood down, or will do in October. Now, anyone who knows me might think I'm pleased that the Prime Minister is going. Actually, I'm not, because the people who are lining up to take his place are considerably worse. Cameron has his faults, of course, but he is on the socially liberal side of the Conservative Party, if not economically. And at least he believes in climate change, whereas look at the people lining up to take over from him. Boris Johnson and Michael Gove are both appalling. Theresa May is kind of appalling, probably not quite as appalling as the other two, but still appalling. She would want to take away more rights than you can imagine when it comes to crime and punishment. She's been a terrible Home Secretary. What else? Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon has said there will be another referendum. And I don't blame them. Good luck to Scotland, because actually the vast majority of the Scots voted to stay in the EU, and of course they're being dragged out of it by the rest of us. It's interesting actually seeing who voted in and who voted out, isn't it? The young overwhelmingly voted to stay in the EU. The young, that obviously is the group that has the most to lose, or the most to gain, but anyway has to live with the decision for the longest. Whereas as the age groups go up, then people voted more and more for leave. Who knows why that these people, with their gold-plated pensions and massive increase in property prices, who've done very well out of the EU, thank you very much, are going to make sure that the young aren't going to profit from it when they did. You could say the same about Tory voters, couldn't you? Because let's face it, people who support scrapping grants and increasing fees for tuition and all, cutting benefits, other people who've benefited from those things from their whole lives. But that's a different argument. I think it's very much kicking away the ladder of people for people who are following you. But then what else can we say about the people who voted to leave and the people who voted to remain? The people who voted to remain tended to be the people who'd had more education. They tended to be, as I say, younger. They tended to be, it wasn't actually just, there was no wealth difference that was measured. They tended to be more educated. That doesn't always tie up all wealth, of course. They did tend to live in London. In fact, what you can say about the people who voted to remain is they have more experience of living with immigrants than the people who tended to vote leave. The leave vote was the strongest in the rural areas where there's very little immigration, which is a very interesting thing, isn't it? What else? Well, I'm going to show you a number of things, social issues, where people were asked whether they... Well, you can see for yourself what it says on this screen. It is interesting, isn't it? Looking at these figures, you can see all of the things that somebody who is socially liberal, in fact, most reasonable people would consider a good thing, like social justice and the rights of women and the environment. People who believe these things are important overwhelmingly voted to stay in the EU. It's interesting, isn't it, that the people who, a lot of people who voted to leave the EU think the internet is a force for ill. The mind boggles about some of these things. I mean, you can see that there seems to be a clear, the things that the vote leave people fear or think are forces for ill are pretty much lined up along those age boundaries, aren't they? And then when we look at engagement, look how the people who actually never really pay much attention to the news vote, or at least pay attention to politics, voted. Is it good that people who don't really know what's going on have so much sway? I mean, I'm torn with referenda. I think if everyone had been presented with the actual facts, which is very difficult to do because it's a very complex issue, then I wouldn't have such a problem with this referendum. As it is, people have been presented with lies, and we've had such a bad campaign, really, from both sides. Not always because of dishonesty, but because of concentrating on things like the economics, which, as I said in my last video, is not helpful. We needed more exposure to the people saying the positives of staying in the EU, and those people were there. I mean, the Greens were doing it, and to a certain extent the Lib Dems were doing it, and maybe some of Labour, I don't know, but those people never got any press, and the people who got the press were Cameron and Osborne and the guys going on about the economy all the time. And so we've had people voting who really weren't informed. And whereas in a general election that would be an issue, but hey, it's only for 5 years. This time, this is forever. There's been some people saying, and it's noticeable on social media, complaining that people are sort of having a go at them for voting leave and saying, well, it was my choice. I say to those people that choices have consequences. If you vote to take away my freedom and the freedom of my children and the freedom of everyone else, then by all means, I'm not expecting anyone, I'm not saying we should abuse those people, but it's within everyone's rights to say to them, what the hell did you think you were doing? There are consequences to your vote, and you've done this. The economy has gone down. Scotland might well break off. God knows what else is going to happen. Could have Boris Johnson in charge. This is what happens when you vote for some idea of, I don't know what. I mean, if you know any people who voted leave, just go and ask them what they actually objected to about the EU and what they think will be better now. Because what's going to happen, by the look of it, is a lot of economic instability. Who knows how long that will last? Years, 7 or 8 years of exit negotiations. And then we'll be in a situation a bit like Norway, where they pay all the money in and have to obey all the rules, but don't have a say. Now, that, to me, that's a best case for me, actually, I think, because we've still got freedom of movement, we've still got protections offered for our environment and all that sort of thing. It would be madness to leave the free market. I don't think we're going to do that. So basically, there's a lot of economic instability and a lot of bolstering the far right, not just here, but in Europe. For what? For what? That's what it comes down to. So a depressing day, really. If I could take anything from this, it's that some small glimmer of hope is available if enough people then rally around progressive causes. But it's looking less likely. It's looking like this is going to strengthen the right. What's going to happen with UKIP? Where are they going to go? What's going to happen? They will assume they've been given a mandate. I wonder if Farage will be given a place in the Lords. Who knows what will happen? It's interesting that Johnson is and Gove are pushing back and saying, we won't invoke Article 50, which is actually leaving the EU. For ages, we don't want to. And the EU are saying, you must do it quickly because we don't want to be faffing about. We've got to send a message. And I think it's because the Leave people know that the EU is going to punish us. And quite right too, because it doesn't want other countries following suit. And I don't think any of the Leave people want to be in charge, or even or they don't want people to remember what they did when that happens. And I don't blame Cameron for wanting to go. Would you want to be in charge when the economy tanks? I mean, any more than it has done already. No, he's perfectly sensible going, and if Johnson's in charge, it'll be the worst. It'll be worse until the next general election, and that may end up being called early, but it will end up being called before the fallout from this has really kicked in, and that's if the Tories do it. That's why they will, because they want another 5 years, and they want to ride out the withdrawal chaos, safe in the knowledge there won't be another election for a while. So anyway, heads up everyone, let's get ourselves together. We were allowed a day of anger and annoyance and despair, but let's then pull together. Let's get active. Don't just moan. It's time to join a political party. Maybe not mine, but I would like you to join mine. Do something about it. Don't just sit at the sidelines, because this is what happens. This is what happens when the old people, who are more likely to vote, get out and vote and screw over the young people. It's happened before. It will happen again. It's certainly happened this time. They are taking away our futures. They're taking away the futures for our children, and my options and your options today have been limited by a number of people who won't live to see what they've done. Who knows what the end result will be, but it's not going to be good. There's really very little to see as an upside. So let's do something about it. Get active and let's fight for a better UK.